Hi everyone, this is Danielle coming to you with a video about creating a garden diagram as you plan out your garden and where things will be for your growing season. I tried to make this as economic as possible. There are plenty of software tools you can purchase, um, but most gardeners, don't really want to invest in that or don't have access. Um, so this is an easy way you can do it with a simple tool like PowerPoint. So in my urban garden I have now, I have 3 raised beds, 2 trees, two a huge earth garden in the middle, and then um, 2 long beds of roses, and then I have potted plants and space for more potted plants. So what I like to do with my planning, if you'll notice, I have like similar plants connected together. Two reasons: some of them require cross pollination, but also it helps to reduce different types of pests just all over the garden. So if I get some squash bugs, they'll be relegated to this leftmost quadrant of my garden. Between flowering plants, fruiting plants, and leafy green plants, you'll see a couple of things. So this is marigold, milkweed, and beautyberry. This will attract pollinators, right? And I want the pollinators to roam across all quadrants of the garden. So I have pollinator friendly plants here. Beautyberry is also consumable. Then I have milkweed, zinnia, marigold, blueberry, raspberry, another berry plant in this quadrant here. Sunflowers flanking the earth garden. Also have a moringa. I might have 2 moringas. And the easy thing about this is you can just move things around. And, of course, this is not true to scale. So all the circles you see are grow bags. And the squares are the raised garden bed and the herb garden. And I have herb garden here. Other things to consider is closeness to your dwelling. So this bed backs up to the house, and then we have a patio for more plants. So I don't have the patio plan listed here yet, but it's easy enough just to create another slide for the patio plan of potted plants. Okay. So in the garden bed, on this left area, I keep rosemary, and rosemary lasts me all year. So these rosemary plants are at least 2 years old here, but I plant rosemary every spring. So rosemary is great for warding off pests naturally. So you'll see I have rosemary here to help with warding off pests for microgreens and tender lettuces, and then sage and thyme flanking that. So those are great herbs for cooking and healing, but they're also good for creating organic pesticides as well. Um, so that's that bed. Nothing is fruiting over here in this phase, but the whole point of this plan is that you create your first phase where you know this will get me up to harvest one. And then for each string of plants, you want to know, okay, when I pick my microgreens, what is going to go in that place? And to keep the parasites and pests confused, never put the same thing in the same place 2 times in a row. Right? So if I'm starting with the leafy greens here, then maybe over here I move legumes in phase 2. If I'm starting with legumes and mustard greens over here, maybe I switch it up, put a tender leaf green here, keep the rosemary in the middle, then do something it doesn't expect. So this way you keep your pests confused. They don't have this one place they always go. And I would highly suggest you keep rosemary between your leafy greens. These are hardy greens, collards, and kale. And then I have legumes on the side. Now, another reason I do this is your legumes will be nitrogen fixing, whereas your collards and kale are nitrogen loving green leafies. So these are soaking up the nitrogen. The green beans, even if you have or don't have inoculators, and we can get into that later, but those are more likely to keep the nitrogen in the soil. Um, so we'll dig into that. Also, there's a Native American method of three sisters growing, which we can dig into in other garden plans as well. Okay, so then in the middle, in the earth garden, so this is not a raised bed. This is actually a deep garden that's about 6 feet in depth, and it's been um, developed over, gosh, at least 7 to 8 years. So it has native soil, compost, organic garden soil, mulch. It's a very rich soil, um, but it tends to be more neutral, right? So any of my acidic plants, acidic loving plants like my tea, my berries, um, what else is more acidic? Sweet potatoes slightly, um, but anything that's going to require an amendment to the soil, it's better to keep it in a grow bag or a separate bed that is strictly for plants that love that pH of soil. So before you get to this level of understanding what you can put next to what, definitely do some research on companion planting, how to naturally repel pests, and also um, pH, soil pH. I wouldn't want to grow, say, moringa, which likes um, a more acidic soil, right? Or say a blueberry raspberry. I wouldn't want to grow that in the middle of my garden. This is a more neutral, alkaline, stuff that is just fine either way. That's what you want here. Okay. And you can always amend your soil, but um, these are things I've grown here before, and I kind of know where things are going to do best. So I have 2 rows of okra, then I have purple peas, then a row of corn, then black eyed peas. So growing the legumes between the plants that grow high on stalks will once again help keep the nitrogen and the nutrients being taken out, keep that nitrogen back in. Um, so yeah, so black eyed peas, corn, okra, peas, green beans, and then corn. And this is the sweet summer corn. And then I've already talked about the other beds. My watermelons this year, I'm trying those in grow bags. Anything you see in a circle, it's a grow bag. I have zinnias and milkweeds, beauty berries. Um, that'll attract pollinators, more zinnias and marigolds. Cucumbers towards the back. These will be vining. This will be all over the place, right? So I can easily build a trellis along this back fence so that I keep those vines kind of out of the way. Same thing for the watermelon. Before it produces the fruit, it's going to be all over the place. And I would rather keep all those tendrils um, localized to one place. And I can easily move it around if things get a little bit out of control. Which with watermelon they tend to do, but this will be my first time doing it in a grow bag, so we'll see how that goes. Then we have carrots, beets, lemongrass, sweet potatoes. So these are taller grow bags, the 10-gallon ones, because these will go deep. The carrot soil is going to be more loose, sandy soil, loomy soil, whereas the beets will be more neutral. So definitely research soil pH, and I'll show you in another video how we can catalog that and make sure that we have a good grow plan. So, like I said, this would be phase one, right? So, what I would do is just say this is phase one. And phase two is about halfway through the gardening season, because all of these have different um, timelines, you know, as far as when they're going to germinate, when they're going to produce fruit. Most of it is, you know, a wide array of times, but typically, if you plant in February, you're going to see fruit by um, May or late April for a lot of this stuff. For some of this stuff, you won't see it has to go through the hot season, like a sweet potato. It has to go through summer. Okra, it has to go through summer. Your corns, they will need to go through summer. So a lot of your common vegetables, your watermelon, the things we love in summertime, they have to go through a longer season. So just be aware that when I say phase two for this second one, not everything is going to be taken off. So basically, you say, okay, I'm keeping thyme there. It's a herb. It's, you know, it's going to be for the entire growing season, spring, summer, fall, and you know, well into winter before it's no longer viable. The tender lettuces, these are going to come out pretty quickly. They're going to grow up. They're going to do their thing. So, like I said, you want to keep confusing your plant, but also keep in mind, by the time I get to grow these green beans, it may be mid-April, and in Houston, it gets very hot very quickly. Um, so I wouldn't want to say put a bell pepper over here. In this zone, I found that your bell peppers need to be grown almost in the shade once it starts to get hot. So I grow them very close to the house. Um, and I've seen people even build little um, shaded areas for their bell peppers. I've seen people build, um, they take 5-gallon buckets and put water in it and keep the water running through the bucket to keep um, the the plant cool. So it's like a double bucket method where you have a smaller diameter bucket inside of a larger diameter bucket. You put water on the edge and you have a hose running through to it. I would rather honestly just grow them in the shade close to the house. I don't have the time for that other stuff. But you know, it's the ingenuity is amazing there. Okay, so I would probably take out the tender lettuce, but you get the point. It's like phase two is, if I don't have this plant that's going to be quick growing, what am I going to do? Okay. Um, so you just keep going. You can even color code it. So maybe, you know, we're going to harvest our squash in June. Um, what are we going to do? Well, in my experience with squash plants, I was getting squash well into July. And then once that was done, maybe I could do a green bean there for a fall planting. And it might work out. Or I could do some tender leafy greens, something like that, right? Um, but the main thing is, if I had squash bugs or things I had to control, give them something that they don't like. Don't give them a tender green. Give them some rosemary around something else. And that way they're like, oh, squash is gone. Then they might go try to find it, but it won't be anywhere else. So that's basically, you know, the plan. And then, like I said, you can color code it, use different colors, so on and so forth. So you'll also notice in between the peppers, I have basil and thyme, basil and sage, basil and rosemary. From what I used to have basil over here with these other herbs, and the basil just gets so big, but it produces a beautiful flower that pollinators love. So just let it grow. Um, Pick it as much as you can, but don't over pick it, and keep some that you want to go to seed. And it'll be a beautiful, fragrant, pollinator friendly plant. Okay, so that concludes the garden diagramming video in PowerPoint. All right, you guys have a blessed day. God bless you. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.